So, you guys happy with the agenda?
Yes, I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, all those in, oh wait.
I'll second.
Yes, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's take a look at the minutes from the January 15th meeting.
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes as presented for the January 15th, 2020.
And I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on. I don't think we have any public comments today. John, you want to give us the mayor's report?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. We haven't seen each other assembled since November, if I remember correctly, so it's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm just going to brief you up real quick so you can get started on your last GMA class. Our septic receiving initiative, I guess is the right way to put it, is finally gaining some traction. We actually have a plan from Mr. Kelly Wynn, the operator of Water Wastewater Services. They came down, briefed us with that plan. We accepted it. The City Council approved $141,000 to get it going, and Director Cannon is now in process of removing the metal materials from out behind the collection ponds, and then as soon as he's done with that, he's going to start flattening that hill out, and then we'll kick the $141,000 into put down some kind of appropriate surface so that we can set a press on and take the sludge out of the pond, run it through the press. The sludge will go into a pile, the water will return into the plant, and then we'll treat the leavings, if you will, the biosolids, and the goal there is to eventually get it to compost. The other course of action we could do is, rather than compost it, simply dewatering it makes it much more economical to tractor over to the east side of the state where it can be disposed of properly. Mayor Fournier works in Aberdeen, and one of the businesses around them found out who he was. They started talking, and the guy has a license to spread these biosolids in Grays Harbor County. So we're investigating the possibility of maybe partnering with him. And, you know, once we produce the biosolids, a contract with him to get it done on this side of the mountain. So anyway, we're making progress there. The City Council voted a resolution and recommended to the County Commissioners that they not approve the zoning request for the North Point development. So as far as we're concerned, we're shutting that down to the best of our ability. This year we passed a new budget. The budget's focused on completing the grant projects that we've started over the past few years and kind of transition to infrastructure improvement here in town, particularly the streets and sidewalks. We had no change in the City Council. You're all aware of that, I'm sure. Thurston County is studying a vaping ordinance, you know, along the lines of no cigarette smoking, no vaping. So the county doesn't actually have that, and you know, they would like to do it. They haven't asked for our support yet, but I imagine we'll give it. It's the right thing to do. FEMA approved a new study and approved the redrawing of their National Flood Insurance map. And that's a good news for Tenino, because now Tenino residents, their rate will go down because you know, they don't feel Scatter Creek was the challenge it used to be. Mr. Rich Edwards, our city historian, has taken it on as a project all of his own. Chain Hill over here. How do you spell it? C-H-A-I-N, C-H-A-E-N, C-H-E-I-N, he's done the research, and he says the correct spelling is C-H-A-E-N-N, and that's after Mr. Charles Chain, and that's based on his signature on the deed for the property that the hill is on. And so now he's running that through the State Historical Society with a view towards making that the official name. So we don't have one in here, but when you see the Tenino topographical map, the name will change on the map, literally. For the first time in a long time, Dave Watterson was not elected to be the Mayor Pro Tem. Linda Godeback is the Mayor Pro Tem. So when Mayor Fournier is out of town, she's the mayor. All right, and that brings us to actually only 2 meetings ago. Joint Animal Services came out and talked to the council. They're chartered to provide animal control services in unincorporated Thurston County. They have contracts, however, with Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater, and so they provide animal control services within those cities. They're down here talking to us because they would like to contract with us to have them do those services in our city. We would like to contract with them to have them do those services in our city. We can't afford it. That being said, we're exploring options with them. It's important to us because in order to train our commission law enforcement officers or the code enforcement officers, and in the past we've even used public works employees, they actually have to be trained and certified, and in Washington that means the Criminal Justice Training Commission is in charge of the program. We can only send police officers to that program, and it's just, you know, it's not going to work for us. So we need a better option. That's one we're exploring. You may have heard that longtime employee Denise Nelson is no longer with us. We've already had a selection process, and Miss Jen Sharber, formerly the Executive Director of Race for Rowan Foundation, will be starting Tuesday the 18th. The Ag Park is coming right along. So we're administering the grant money with the Chamber of Commerce to extend sewer and water to the Ag Park property. The engineer just recently completed his engineering diagrams for all that. They are at the Department of Health because they have to be approved, the separation between sewer and water. Assuming success at the Department of Health, that'll come back to the engineer. The engineer will bid the project out, and he thinks they're going to be able to start actually constructing that infrastructure at the end of March. City Hall renovation, again, we haven't been able to get reimbursement for what we're spending on this building yet because Commerce has not provided us with an agreement between the city and Commerce to get the money to flow. But based on the fact that we know we got the grant, we're spending money. And one of the things we did is have an HVAC person come out and look at our heating system. And what we discovered is when the energy efficiency grant retrofit took place, the heater downstairs should have had backdraft dampers installed. When we were looking at, you know, why does the system not seem to be working for us the way it should be working, when all the engineers tell us it's the latest and greatest, it's because we left the back door open. You know, when it's hot in the building, the cold air is trying to suck in. When it's cold in the building, the air is trying to go the other way. There's nothing to stop it. That was a failure of the contractor and a failure of our inspector to catch it. They never installed them. Okay, so we identified that. We got back with the original contractor. The original contractor agrees, hey, I got to make it right, but I got a deal for you. At the time they were installed, the mechanical code was non-motorized louvers, just the force of the air would open and close them. Now the code is motorized louvers. Okay, so they're positively open or they're positively closed at the appropriate time. Not only is that the code, it's much more efficient. The reason it's now the code is because it's much more efficient. Works better. So they have offered to install motorized damper or louvers for us for the time and material expense over and above what the non-motorized installation. So basically the cost of the motors and a little bit of rewiring, and they have to reprogram the system. We think that's about $3 grand. The city council went for it. So the first thing that will get done to this building as part of the renovation is the HVAC system will be brought up to snuff. So that's 1/5 of the project. Quarry Pool renovation hit a snag. We were going great guns out there. We were made aware that the concrete floor in the shallow end is not anchored to the sandstone. So water would actually seep in between the concrete and the sandstone, and the concrete would lift. Not good. The plan for the renovation was concrete's really not the optimum surface for swimmers. Most in-ground pools are covered with a substance called gunite. So that's what we're going to do here. If we put the gunite on the concrete as is, it will crumble. It wouldn't even last a season. The concrete has to be anchored to the bedrock, and in order to anchor the concrete to the bedrock, the concrete has to be reinforced concrete. You know, there's got to be bars. Guess what? No bars. So, stop. The engineer's taking a look at what engineering solutions there might be out there. He thinks the correct answer is pull the old concrete out, prepare the sandstone, and just gunite the sandstone. They'll have to do something around the edges. That's where he's leaning, and that's what we're doing. Quarry house renovation is coming right along. We got an architectural firm. The engineer hired an architectural firm. They came out and made drawings of the building, and then we had a meeting and say, okay, now we know how big this thing is. Here's the things you want to do. Let's go look at them now. And we went and looked at them, and one of the primary things we wanted to accomplish, if you walk into a quarry house, you'll notice cracks in the ceiling. If you're really observant, you'll notice that right underneath those cracks there are dimples in the floor. And that's because the ceiling is supported by posts on either end of the building and by beams, and underneath the floor, the posts are no longer in contact with their footings. So the first thing that we got to do is figure out an engineering solution to get the posts resting solidly on their footings, and then they can fix the cracks. If you don't do that, you can repair the cracks all day long, they'll crack again next week. So that's not as bad a thing as the quarry pool, because we haven't started doing anything yet, and we just went down the decrement list. Okay, that adds $15,000 that we didn't expect here, but we'll take $15,000 from the cosmetics, and we still got a plan. So goals are, you know, make the building sound, the soundness of the building, upgrade the kitchen as close to commercial quality as the budget will allow, bring the things in there, the bathrooms and the kitchen and all that stuff, into compliance with ADA standards, and then a whole bunch of aesthetic things. And so we're, you know, again, we got the decrement list, and we're just starting at the bottom and working it. Caboose project. We bought the caboose. It's been sitting over there, and we haven't spent a lot of money. We threw a tarp over it, basically. We're going to trade the tarp in for a metal structure. The metal structure then will, you know, arrest further damage due to the environment, rain, and it will give the workers, you know, a protected area to work in. And once the caboose is gone, then we can do other things with the building. But we're getting the building. Mayor Fournier was put in contact with a couple of folks that are railroad enthusiasts, and I mean, they're taking the ball and they're running with it. They've started a GoFundMe page. I don't have the information for you, but I know they've started a GoFundMe page, and they're starting to bring tools and materials down over there and get ready to work on it. The city's going to support that with $10,000 immediately. That will be in the form of a Thurston County Heritage Grant that was approved for that purpose. And then we have a request into the Port of Olympia for another $10,000 Small City Economic Development Fund grant that again will go to the caboose. So we're buying the structure. The city's buying the structure with its own funds. That's about 5,000, say 5,000. And if the rest of it works out, then we'll have about 15,000 that we can spend on materials. The volunteers are donating the times, and they've got the tools. Creative District. If you had your devices and could see the electronic version of the packet, Senator, I'm going to botch his name, so I'm just going to spell it for you. Liias, one of our state senators, is sponsoring a Creative Districts Capital Improvement Pilot Project. Okay, so there's 8 cities in the state that either have or are this close to having a certified creative district. And what this project is intended to do is provide money to those 8 cities to kind of jumpstart the state's creative district program. Tenino's in on that. We're this close. We submitted our letter of intent just today. We've got a lot of background work done. I mean, we've been working on the infrastructure of the district, like a board of governors and people that will do it, a project list, a budget, all that kind of stuff. So we have this body of work, and we've submitted the letter today. Hey, we're ready. Come out and certify us. Then they come out and they look at our documentation. They see our map. They look at the projects we have planned. They look at the budget we're willing to allocate. And if they certify us, we're golden. We get up to $80,000 to execute the project that we submitted. What is that project? We just got the parking lot over here in the library. That's been deeded to the city. And it's right next door to the farmer's market. It's in the central business district. We propose to build a pergola type structure and area where the goods from the farmers markets can be distributed and displayed and distributed. It's a meeting place. There's water fountains, trash cans, all that kind of stuff. A nice place that we hope will increase the volume of pedestrian traffic, particularly downtown. So that's very exciting. And finally, you may have seen it on Facebook. The city's Chamber of Commerce, the mayor, some business folks, as well as our chamber, in coordination with the Visitor and Convention Bureau and Thurston Economic Development Center, to produce a video in hopes of attracting the attention of HGTV for a new pilot project that they have. Are you familiar with HGTV? Okay, and you've seen the home makeover? Well, it's the same thing, but for the town. The concept is they will come in and do something, we don't know what, but help us spruce up, and that's what we're trying to do. Facades, awnings, paints, trim along the windows. We don't know, the sky's the limit. So that's off to a good start. So pending your questions, I'll excuse myself.
You need to get Alex's autograph. He was in the video.
Who's that?
Alex.
Oh!
Did you not watch it?
Was he?
I want to say
Okay.
All right. Well, I think we're going to do our sustainable Houston work at the table. So.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming down.
Sure. Such a nice evening. It's not going down there.
Yes.
It wasn't dark.
Thank you.
I might survive.
Yeah, it's nice when you can go to and from work. It's not always dark.
I know.
Nice change.
Yes, it was. I know.
I do. copies of the standard.
Alright, two more.
It's all online too, so you're welcome to print copies, but if you don't want more paper around, you can look at that. So, I think we're gonna get started. So you know who the Thurston Regional Planning Council is?
Yes.
Okay, good. I was just letting you know that, because some people are like, we don't know who you are or what you do.
Prior to SJC being our planner at TRPC. So,
Yes.
So for us, we maybe are the newer ones.
Yes.
So I've heard it, had an idea, but
Okay.
yeah.
So just ask us any questions
You
if
got
it's
it.
not clear.
So we've been around for about 50 years, a little more than 50 years, and all of the cities and towns and University Transit, PUDs, school districts, library, Nisqually Indian tribe, Chehalis, Confederated Tribes of the Chehalis Reservation belong. And the whole idea is the Council of Governments that says the people in our community don't want to say, oh, I'm traveling, I've just left Tenino and I'm going to Rainier, and everything's different there, and the roads don't work the same way. So the whole idea is you need to plan in your jurisdictions, but also in a regional way, so that people are able to deal with just how things work. In addition to transportation, we also do land use planning and environmental work, and have federal and state requirements that we have to meet for reporting and the like. And we have about 20 people on staff, and it's a great place to work. And you have representatives from your council that are on both our council as well as our transportation policy board. So John Callahan is on our transportation policy board, and we met this morning. And then Dave Watterson. Yeah, we're, so if I
It's been a
fall
long day.
asleep, it's nothing. And then Dave Watterson is on our regional council, so there's representation of Tenino there. And anything else I'm forgetting about what we do? And then we do things that people want us to do. So we are the ones that have grant funding to do rural transit down here in the community, which just went fare free. So this is a grant application that we do every couple of years, and keep transit running down here. I think you've already seen copies of these, so this is the regional transportation plan that we're doing. You can take copies of these. There's a great little survey online, and if you have kids in your house, it would be great for them to fill it out too, because they're the ones that we're leaving this all to. And they get to answer questions or think about drones. Are they good or bad? Can you imagine how they're going to impact transportation for you? And then the last piece before we get started is the census is coming, and this is a big deal, and we want to make sure everyone is counted, and that's sometimes hard. There are folks that feel uncomfortable providing information. As I think I mentioned, it's all online now, so we do a postcard in the mail rather than a certain census form, and then you'll fill it out online. If you don't feel comfortable filling it out online, you can fill it out by phone, and you can request a paper copy. But it is required that everyone participate, and unfortunately, a lot of times rural communities don't participate as fully. Tenino tends to be really good at participating a lot, but which is good, yes. But if you talk to people who are saying, oh, I'm not going to fill that out, realize that they will come to your house until you fill it out. It is a requirement, and
tell them that it's really important, because all the funding that goes to jurisdictions comes through the census numbers, so it's a 10-year kind of
We'll
thing.
be using those for another decade then.
exactly, yes. And the other piece is sometimes the undercounted folks. I can imagine people who are immigrants, you know, maybe not being undercounted, people who are homeless. Often children are undercounted, and sometimes that's confusion in people's homes. I think it's because they just don't like their kids that day, and they're thinking, no, they don't. But often it is, my kid's in college. Are they counted in college, or do I count them?
Oh, I see.
And
Yeah.
so they're in the military. How will that be counted? And so we have a lot of information. There's scads of information online, but if you get questions about this and you want more information, we're happy to provide that. But it's great if you're able to just tell people that are in your circle, no, this is okay, please do this. They figure $2,300 a person comes to this state.
Oh, wow.
So if you don't fill out the survey, $2,300 goes to some other state,
Sure.
and that's not good.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my sort of, and I think this gives you an idea, you're welcome to take any of these, this gives you an idea that the regional council really does what's important to the members. We have requirements that we have to do, state and federal requirements, but a lot of it is the members come to the table. And you know both Dave and John, and you know they have lots of ideas, so they come to our table and say, hey, have you thought about studying this? Can we get a grant to do this? And so a lot of that work that we do is determined by our membership. So, all right, let's talk about Sustainable Thurston. So this is a grant that we received from the federal government, and it was about, well, 2013 is when we finished it. It was about 3 years, and I can remember, in fact, Vina and I were at a meeting outside of our office, and we got a phone call that we got this grant, and it was like, how exciting! Oh my gosh, this is huge, what are we going to do? So the idea was looking at sustainability, and in this definition, it really is about that triple bottom line that they talk about, people, profit, planet. So how are we dealing with environment, how are we dealing with keeping business operating, and how are we supporting people, and how do you, sometimes the needs and requirements of each of those groups is a little different. So sustainability says we need to be meeting all of those needs, or at least balancing those needs. And so the idea was to look at land use and transportation, food, health, environment, and really create this vision for the future that says, can we have a vibrant, healthy, and resilient future? And I think it's important to remember that each of the jurisdictions that participated in this, you can see all the names of who was representing Tenino at that time. Each of the jurisdictions has somewhat their own definition of sustainability. What does it mean here? And so the idea was, let's have this big community conversation. Let's ask people what's important to you. So we were asking about people thinking, being curious about what the future looks like, clarifying it, being compassionate, choice, and courage. So really look at how things are working, look at those interrelationships. It's really easy to say, here's Tenino and we're going to do this, but you need to think about, well, what's Rainier going to be doing, and what's Centralia going to be doing? How do we work across these lines? And then champion solutions that might not be popular. I don't know about you, but I hate to change. I think other people should change, but I should be able to just keep doing what I'm doing. So in some of these situations, people would be considering doing something different about what kind of electricity they use or how often they do use their electricity or when. So there's just a lot of pieces. Food is one that is an interesting piece, and I think that this conversation about food in Sustainable Thurston really was the impetus to start your Ag Business Center. So you see, it's great when you see a plan and then you see, oh, here's one of the results of that plan. I don't take credit and the plan doesn't take credit because a lot of people did work on that. But that was when we started thinking, wow, we need commercial kitchens. We need all these different things. And so I like those out. I like to see something as a planner. Sometimes I get, oh gosh, am I the plan? Am I seeing anything on the ground? And that's when I go look at these buses and say, hey, these are really on the street. It's not just a plan. So anyway, let's move to the next slide. So this is the basic question we asked people. And we came to your community. We went to all the communities, had, I think we were in the school here, if I remember right, and we did a meeting here. But how do you want your community to look and feel and function in 2035? And really asking people to think beyond that 5-year horizon that we often think about. And we had huge participation. Public meetings were filled, had a lot of responses to the survey.
Yeah, we sent a survey to everybody in the county, huge response rate, so it's like,
Yeah, it was really interesting. And so, one of the things we talked about was your future about transportation. So in 10 years, how do you feel your transportation needs will change? Do you think you'll walk more, or telework more, or drive less, walk the same amount? Really trying to put people out there and say, what might you be doing? Now, what we don't have here is flying cars, and we don't have autonomous vehicles. This was a few years ago, but now we would ask those questions of what technology might we be doing.
but in all fairness, we still don't have flying cars.
No, we don't. But your council member, John, brings it up at every transportation
He's holding out.
meeting, so
John
he's
is waiting
representing
for
it.
him.
He's bringing up flying cars at every meeting.
Yeah.
Yes, well, the idea is technology. We need to be
Sure.
thinking beyond
Sure.
this vehicle. So here's the kind of responses we got. We heard from people that they plan on using these telework ride transit more, that they probably will drive less. They'll probably walk the same amount, and 30% said they would drive, ride the bus, carpool the same amount as they're doing now. And then others said, we're not gonna do any of those things. We don't care if you have a train, we're gonna keep driving our car. All of which are valid answers. They work for people.
Who doesn't want to telework?
I know, right?
That's the dream, right?
That's
what I do.
Often, the not wanting to telework is not on the part of the employees, it's on the part of
Oh.
management.
Sure.
If, as a general contractor, I could figure out how to telework and build through the phone, I'd love to.
I got dressed up to come here out of my telework outfit.
In all fairness, some of these people are saying I'll be retired in 10 years, and they won't have to even work.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, if we go to the next slide, it says, why will these change? Why would you be doing something different? And retirement was one of the big ones that says, well, you know, maybe I drive my car now because I have to be 75 different places, or have kids at home, and I hope these kids will leave within 10 years and I will have more freedom to do things. I sound like I hate children, and I don't. The children are old enough to drive, or they're going off to college. There'll be more options. There'll be more congestion, more growth. My work will change. We might be moving to a smaller place or to a different community. How much cost is it gonna cost? So really, people, I was so impressed that they were able to not only think about what might be coming in the future, but to give us reasons of why they thought things would change. So, we can go to the next slide. So one of the topics we talked about, which we're all talking about right now, as you know, is affordable housing and homelessness and the like. But this was looking at housing and sustainability kind of from a regional perspective, and what would that look like?
And actually, we're revisiting that conversation. We just got a grant from Commerce to do a regional housing plan for Lacey and Water, so it'll be a good chance to. This was kind of coming out of the recession, this plan, and now the housing market's super tight. We'll be interested to see the change.
So then as far as sustainable, Thurston, would you also be looking at like mental health, plans, substance abuse, because
We did not go into that aspect of health. We
Okay.
had health. So it was arranged around different work groups, like Karen mentioned, food. We had the typical ones like
Sure.
emergency transportation, but we also had emergency services. Actually, we think we got the grant. It was a really competitive federal grant. We think we got it because our fire districts all joined together as
Sure.
partners, and that was very unusual. But we did have the county health department, but it was really around the community design and health, which actually led to, if you've heard of Thurston Thrives, it's a county initiative to
Okay.
pull a bunch of workers together. That was actually an option, this is Thurston, the county pulled in-house, rather than focusing on transportation and land use, they focused on mental health,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, so can you walk in your community? If you finally listen to your doctor's advice and decide you're gonna walk 30 minutes a day, do you have the facilities to do that? And maybe even more important, do you know where you find that out? So sometimes stuff is out there, but we don't know about it. So it's an education piece too for, where could you walk in Tenino if you wanted to walk half an hour? And so that was part of it as well.
So the main thing, and this is kind of your GMA 101, the main thing about Sustainable Thurston was it was trying to bring most of the elements of GMA together and then some others that aren't in the GMA. So it was a voluntary thing. We all signed up to do it. We weren't being told by the state we had to do it. So that was a big difference, but we tried to integrate it completely with GMA so that all the ideas and the actions, as much as possible, could flow into the comprehensive plans and the community visions. So as each community sets their vision, and all our communities, we have very distinct and very livable communities, all different shapes and sizes. We tried to take that into account as we were talking to folks. That's the first thing we heard. We're not one size fits all. We don't want to be like anybody else, but we all kind of can fit together as a community. And you'll see one of the first chapters in that book is this, about the different communities, and you'll see actions that each type of community can take to make themselves and get to the goals of Sustainable Thurston. So, and one of the things we really looked at was our population forecast. We said, okay, so we're going to look out 20, 30 years. So the planning horizon here was 2035. Now we're going to keep 2045, just with our forecasts and that sort of thing. But who are we planning for? How does our population grow? So we're actually in the midst, we had been in the midst of updating our forecast at the time we were talking to folks, and there's a lot of, like, well, we don't want to plan for these people. Who are these people? And then when you think about it, the conversation was, well, we are these people. I mean, when you think about how we grow, that's kind of hard to see, but that starts from 1970. The kind of red color, those are people that move here, and you can see how it goes up and down. That has a lot to do with the economics in our region. During the recession, we don't get many people moving here, but when there's lots of jobs, like when unemployment is low, like right now, our migration is really high. So you can see, but if you go back, if I go to, like, I show this slide a lot when I go talk to people, and if you go to a room and say, okay, who was here in 1970, 90% of people who raised there are not going to raise their hand. They moved here since 1970. So we are planning for us. And then the bottom is the natural increase, so the difference, the births, the deaths, essentially. But you can see how we are a really desirable community. People want to move here, but it's us. We are the one. We are the people. And so that led into this whole idea that it's really important where these folks located, where the housing locates, and where the jobs locate. And so our growth management, says we want to, over time, start getting more compact urban communities. We want more folks locating in our urban areas, within our city, incorporated city areas, or urban growth areas, and less in the rural areas. And so since GMA went in the early 90s, we've actually seen a shift towards that. A lot of it has to do with changes in zoning in the rural county and changes in zoning in the city. They kind of that push and pull. You can see it really has started to go that way. And Sustainable Thurston's vision is that'll continue to go. We'll start to see even less growth in the rural county, preserving those rural lands, and more growth in the urban areas. We'll talk a little bit about how that growth in the urban areas can be used to really get the type of community we want. So instead of being scared of it, how can we kind of use it and shape it the way we want to grow our communities?
And when we talk about the urban communities, we're not talking about the big urban communities. We're talking about Tenino, your urban area.
Yeah, and those distinct, we've got from the downtowns, the Olympia and Lacey, to the corridors that connect, so I don't know if you're familiar with that there, but like the Martin Way corridor, to the suburbs. Small towns are very distinct and different, you're separated, just got a whole different fabric to you, and then rural areas that sort of surround it.
It's not necessarily just city limits.
It's the growth areas essentially, so Grand River included, and then there's places that are a little bit in between like Rochester, so.
Right.
And when we were looking at this, we also talked about expectations. So I grew up in this community. I went to Tumwater High School when it was kind of a rural farm community, and there was not an expectation that people that lived out in the county would have city services. They just assumed that maybe they had to put their own fires out, or they knew they wouldn't get a bus out there and the roads might not be as good. Now, often we have people moving into rural areas and saying, well, how come it takes 911 longer to get to my house than if I live next to the fire station? So I think there is that different expectation that you get everything in each community. I get all the rural stuff I want in my urban community, I get all the urban stuff I want in my rural community, and that's not always possible, nor do you want, I mean, when growth goes out into the community and then the people that are out there say, and we'd like to be connected to sewer, well, okay, main sewer is here and you're way out here, that's gonna cost a lot of money for the community as well as you. And so that balance of what are the expectations of people.
So this slide is just put in here, you guys are on the Planning Commission, the word density sometimes has this really, it's almost a dirty word in some places, but density is just a thing, it's just a measurement. We just want to use this slide to show, you know, it's simply a measure of how many housing units or people there are per acre, and it shouldn't be a negative thing, it's just a thing, it's just something to measure. So we use this to just show, you know, in a city center, when we're talking about a city center, we're not talking about a Portland or Seattle, we're talking about an UPS, so 30 units per acre, so kind of a small apartment complex, maybe 3 or 4 stories at the most. Urban neighborhood, that would be something like the South Capitol neighborhood, or even the downtown cores of Rainier, Tenino, where you just get a little bit more density there. Suburban neighborhood, well, actually small cities, because you don't have a sewer. You do, but you didn't when you were planning. Suburban neighborhoods, so surrounding areas, and then rural residential, the goal is to get it down to 5 acres. That's not really true in Thurston County. We have so many plats that were out there before the 5 acre zoning went into place, and they're just kind of working their way through the system. The biggest examples of those would be around the lakes, where you see smaller amounts. So when you think about those densities and those types of areas, you get different choices. Like Karen was saying, choices become, they have different probability in different types of area. And so a lot of the conversation we have with people is just trying to get those themes out there and have people understand that there's trade-offs. If you don't want to live in a city center, you may not have frequent transit. You know, one of the really interesting things was people didn't want it all. They wanted to live out, but have the bus come to their door, you know, and it was about managing expectations and explaining to people, well, this is linked to that. You can't not vote for taxes yet have all these services. You can't, you know, just there's, and so we were just assembling a
Ponies
whole
for
bunch
everyone
of,
with no cost doesn't work.
But because we are a transportation agency, we have a lot of focus. We spend a lot of time talking about the choices you have, and it's all about the community with the right mix of choices that you can provide. So you're not going to get in a 5 acre lot a really walkable to something type of community. There's nothing really to walk to. For recreation, of course, yes. And those choices are really important. One of the things we were really focused on was our aging population, and just as our baby boomers are basically aging, we're just going to have this huge change in people over 65 or people over 85. And so as a planning commission, think about that. Think about what type of community will be here in 9 or 20 years when you start looking at ordinances or your comp plan, because those are the people you're planning for. You want to make sure that simple things like how do you want your homes to be ADA accessible? Think about multiple stories of homes. I mean, we've got a little bit more land here, so I mean, one of the biggest housing shortage right now is single-story homes, because people who are aging do not want to do stairs later, and people do want to stay, if not in their home, in their neighborhood. That's the thing we heard loud and clear. They don't want to move. They don't want to move outside the community unless they're going for sunshine. But you know, if you're staying in Thurston County and you're accepting the rain, you don't want to move to a whole different neighborhood and have to keep those relationships again. You may be willing to move within Tenino or within, say, West Olympia, but not necessarily really out too far. And I'm being very generalistic, but that's what we kept hearing from people.
And we all assumed that we're going to be driving our cars until we're 157, and we're finding that it's about 85, the percentage of people who are 85 and older. That seems to be a key point in maybe you don't want Dad to drive anymore. And so, well, what does that mean? How will Dad get around? And will you be driving him around, and you do have that flexibility? Do you have dial-up service? Maybe dad still likes to walk around, are the sidewalks safe? Is it safe to cross? Do you have all of those kinds of things? So when you're looking at those different demographics, and I was lucky in the sense when we worked on this project that my father was aging and I was the kid in town. And so kind of this was a real thing for me, and how exciting that when he needed to move into an adult family home, there was one in his neighborhood, so he didn't have to, his neighbors could still visit him. So, and that's what everybody typically wants, if you like your neighbors. And so really, as you're thinking about planning, you're thinking about those kids that are 8 now, that are gonna be 28, those people that are 65 now, that are gonna be 85, and how do we build a community that works for everyone?
You asked about health earlier. We really focused on walkability and health. How do you build your communities to have more sidewalks, to have safer walking opportunities? And we have a lot of opportunities down here in a community like this to kind of infill and get the sidewalks in where you need them. It's hard with the state highway coming through, and just how do you do crossings, and how do you really create the type of community that people want to be in, and that you don't have to use a car just to go a quarter of a mile, because it's very inviting to walk right aside. And of course that really has a lot of health impacts. If you don't walk in communities where you can walk, you're getting your exercise without even thinking about it, so it really, really helps. And kids that can walk to school, same thing, they're just more focused when they're in school, so there's all these cross benefits of how communities and how we build them really promotes all these other areas. I know the county has a health chapter in their comp plan. I don't think any of the other jurisdictions do, but they've done a lot of good work trying to link health and community planning. And then economic development was another huge theme of the plan, and we worked with the Economic Development Council, and they created their chapter was basically an EDC working with the private sector, coming up with a bunch of strategies, and they've taken that and implemented that into their strategic plan. And of course they were very foundational with your ag park, and they've just done a lot of great work. Steady, have you heard of Steady, where it's the South Thurston Economic Development Initiative? That actually came out of conversations around this time, not necessarily Sustainable Thurston is another project we were working on, where we were actually looking at community tolerance center down here, and then it ended up being a more viable option to bring more jobs into South County. So there's a whole group of people now, public and private partnerships that are working on that. But that's really important to have jobs close by, because then you don't have to drive to your jobs, and you have more choices of how to get them. I know all of this is stuff you know about and think about, but the idea of being able to have everyone have these conversations and have it come out of their mouths as they were making policy decisions was really great. And that, I would say the biggest gain of Sustainable Thurston was having all these conversations and having this awareness build up in the community and this common vision.
And most of the conversations were very civil. We didn't have a lot of, you're wrong, you're terrible because you want to do this. There are people who thought government was going to come in and make them live in concrete buildings in the middle of town. You know, there's always that. But mostly it was, oh, this is my community. What do I want it to look like? And you're not telling me that Tenino has to look exactly like this. We're saying, how do we make Tenino be the best Tenino that we can have?
And we talked a little bit about access to services, but we have the whole emergency services group meeting. All our groups that met all the different things, it all came down to the land use. All of them said the best thing you can do for us is develop compact communities and keep rural areas rural. And the biggest thing with access to services is the cost. And it's the same with Dollar Lift for inner city transit. Just running those numbers of having an aging population, because the calls come completely related to age, well, and ours, but
a lot of age.
yeah, age, there's a total direct correlation. You can just run the numbers, and it's like, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to pay for these services and provide them at the same level of service in the future? So got everyone thinking about doing studies to make sure that they could get all that in place. Again, like thinking about 15 or 20 years out, it's a lot, but you don't want it to creep up on you. You want to be proactive. And then we talked a little bit about keeping the urban areas urban and keeping rural areas rural. I mean, our rural areas are a really important part of our ecotourism, just having space, so having more people. We saw the graph about all these people, our population keeps growing in a really fast growing area. The only thing that would stop us being fast growing is recession, which we don't want. So we're kind of, that's the way it is, and it's not like we're encouraging growth, it just is the type of community we are. Many people are saying with climate change, the Northwest, just in general, is going to be very attractive. We're going to have water, we're going to have cooler temperatures, so we might end up having a big influx of population. So it's great to be desirable, it's great to have a high quality of life, but it comes with people wanting to move here. Other communities who got the same grant from the federal government were seeing negative population growth, and they were struggling to build their plans around that, because while we have issues around how to accommodate population growth, losing population is a whole other set of issues around that. And then we actually did not write our grant proposal with a food work group, and our community came out and said we want to look at food with all these other topics. So Karen actually spearheaded that to bring that together and integrated the food planning in with all the other topics. So that was really great. I mean, the whole project was very organic. We kind of set out to do something, and then it just kind of built from there as we heard from people. So actually give you some more slides. So that some of all of that is how we're growing and where we live makes a huge difference in how our communities work together. So that's kind of why we have planning commissions, to make sure it all knits together. And you guys are the kind of keepers of how to get those ordinances updated. It's all in the details. I mean, you can do all this big visioning, but it's how it gets implemented on the ground.
And luckily, there's a lot of sample policies out there that you can look at through municipal research services and others that I know that there have been surprises. I know Olympia was doing some work with sort of building standards and how they wanted things to look, and then they started looking at, oh my gosh, this is what this looks like. What we made up here looks like this. That's not right. So sometimes you don't get it right the first time, and you really have to work with the building community, with the business community to say what will work for you as a business and then what works in our town. And so we've all seen, I'm just going to use the example of a chain coming in, a Starbucks or something, and how does that change the character of your community, but also how can you change the character of Starbucks? So we've probably all been to Leavenworth and seen, you can have a theme that goes on, you can have rules that say, we're not going to have any Starbucks at all because we want our local coffee shops to work well. So it's really those details that end up, and you guys are at the beginning of that detail place of saying that, and having conversations with your community where you can say, let's talk about this, because we're not trying to tell you what to do. We're saying we have good examples of how things might work a little better if we do them this way versus this way. And as I said early on, none of us want to change. We all want to do things the way we've always done them, and do whatever we want. But that doesn't always end up with a cohesive, sustainable community. And so, I guess for me, the message of this is, and feel free to go through this report if you have questions. If you want us to come back and talk about pieces, we're happy to do that. But just this idea of having conversation and inviting every viewpoint to the table, and not saying, well, that's a stupid idea. Really saying, okay, help me understand why you think that. We really tried to get under the often I will say I'm against something, and then until someone asks me, I really can't tell you why. I just don't like it.
Just impulsively don't like it.
Exactly. So we were trying to get deeper into that conversation and say, what is it about this that you don't like? Did you see something like this that happened in another city you lived in? And that's when you really got to that nitty-gritty part of, what do you want your community to look like, and how can we help that happen?
We just have a few more slides on some of the data we have at the council and how it's supported kind of monitoring what's been going on. So we just have a few examples. The main thing we have is the sustainable thirst report card. So the plan in the front area set areas we're doing okay in some, and we have a lot of work to do in others, so hitting our goals is gonna be hard. Our policymakers set really aspirational goals. We were in the room when they said, first came to him and said, this is probably realistic, and he said, no, that's no good, we just wanna shoot this. All right, but 10 years later. So it's interesting to see that, and we're gonna probably have a conversation again about, are those goals real, and what can we do to achieve them, or, you know, what do we really wanna do at this point? And then the other document we have online is our profile, which just has a whole bunch of other data that supports it, just different, it's kind of got the same chapters, and if you haven't used it, it's a pretty neat resource if you just want to find out about the population of areas, or school enrollment, or I don't know, pretty much everything under the sun is in the profile, so it's just an online kind of data resource. It used to be able, now it's online.
So if you have kids and they need to do a report for school about the community, it's a really good place to get some of the basic information about what's the population of everything, what percentage of people are at certain incomes. I mean, there's just a lot of information out there. And if you look there and you say, I'm not quite sure what I'm looking for, you can call TRPC, and we have people that deal with data that will help you with that.
That was
So.
my job for 10 years. We already talked about the census.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
So this is just an example of that sustainable thirst report card, and how the data are presented. One of our goals was to ensure that we have water supply, so we have clean drinking water, and we have water in our streams for salmon and other fish. And so we were monitoring the use per person, and we set some goals. And this is actually one where we did pretty well. We met our 2020 target almost, so.
But currently, we're saying we're not.
Oh, well, the deadline is our 2035 target, so we'll see when the next reports come out. And this is, I think the USGS does a report where we get the data, so it's not just in the cities, or just residential consumption, it's ag and commercial, they try to pull it all together. So, yeah, but we do have a little cloudy thing there, I'm not quite sure why, because it looks like we're doing pretty well in that one. The next one is, we only got a couple of examples in here, but online we have all of them, is that residents have the resources to meet their daily needs, and that's really looking at cost-burden households. So the cost-burden households are households that pay more than a certain percentage of their income on housing. We tried to expand the definition for housing and transportation and energy, but we couldn't really get the data around that. That's really how you should measure it, because housing isn't the only thing you have to buy. And they set a very aspirational goal to reduce the number of cost-burden households, but we're not really budging on that, and I'm guessing it's probably even worse now, just, the amount of homeless folks that are out there.
Well, and as the price of housing has gone up out of the recession, and wages have not gone up in many instances at all, let alone equal, so it becomes more difficult.
Yeah, it's really, this one's a tough one, because it really depends on income and housing together. Unfortunately, housing seems to go up much higher than income when it goes up. And then you don't want a recession when housing comes down, because that doesn't work either, so obviously, there's a lot of people working on this one across the area, but,
And we recognize that it's not just influenced by the people of Tenino or the people in Thurston County, that, the national job markets and all of those other pieces play into this one. So we have some control over it at the local level, but some of it sort of comes to us, and we need to deal with it.
yeah, I would say that with all the goals, there's only so much we can do. We try to become this whole part. And so in those plans, there's actions that are specifically said, we can do this, this, and this, to really try to meet those goals. And that's the thing, we'll have to say, well, if we did that, did it help, or what else can we do? So like I said, the main value, I think, is setting these goals and having a conversation around them, because it sets a clear path of where we want to go. We're not going to get there quickly, but at least we know where we want to go. And we keep looking back and say, are the decisions we make day to day, is on on planning commission or city planners gonna get us that way, or are they gonna erode that goal? Because we know we wanna go this direction, let's keep our eye on the prize, even if we're not, let's not kind of loosen regs to go the other way.
Or be distracted by that bright shiny thing over there
Yeah,
that may or may not get us there.
so, that's the end of our slides. I guess the last one's top decisions I had were, that's that whole, like, you're gonna face decisions, asks from people, and you're gonna have to say, well, does that take us towards where the city wants to go, and the region wants to go, or is it taking us backwards? I don't know if you've had to face that yet, you guys are coming in on the commission.
Tenino itself is kind of new to developmental pressures, I would say.
That's true,
As well.
yeah, but I've heard they picked up a lot of those.
Oh, yeah, I mean, but it seems like we're like right at the beginning of possibly a big tsunami of, you know, whatever, we'll see what happens, but
Yeah, you wanna make sure you're getting what you want from the community.
that's right.
You don't wanna just get it at any cost, you wanna strike that balance.
That's right.
And we know that certain parts of, I can remember conversations going on in the Aberdeen area, I can remember one of their council people saying, we would make a deal with the devil to get jobs here. You know, even if it doesn't benefit our community, even if it's not smart long-term, we need to get jobs here. So hopefully you're in a place where you don't have to make quite those drastic of decisions, you can be
Right.
able to think about it.
Yeah, I think that is, basically, you know, we're not in a place where the city is retracting from some historic larger state or something where we're having to provide like services to a really big area without any, you know, money. The city's not really had a ton of money to play with ever, so it hasn't changed much. Kind of landlocked to a certain degree with the hills historically, and on the prairie a little bit, but you know, we definitely feel the same pressure, developmental pressures as it works its way down from the Tumwater area. You know, you can see it like coming down 99 and Tilly to a certain degree, I guess, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And maybe we want one of these, but we don't want 17 of these. You know, so how do we put zoning and regulation in place so that you still are Tenino? You're still sort of a human scale town. And that's hard.
Yeah,
Well, now that you have the sewer, the infill.
it's much easier.
Right, even possible, even like it wasn't before.
Right.
So, but you've got a really great historic character, so how do you preserve that? How do you just get it to be right?
Right. I don't want to like move into some uncontrolled growth of like suburban houses or whatever, you know, out in the wherever they might.
The edges.
Yes, the edges, exactly. I mean, I feel like that would really drastically change the character of the town, which is why I like the ag business center concept and encouraging like the use of those lands for agriculture around our community. I feel like that really helps us maintain an identity as a small sort of town that hopefully we can hold on to. I think that's what a lot of people want in
Yeah.
town.
Absolutely agree.
Whenever we've done like surveys and things, most people say they don't want anything to change, basically.
Yeah.
They want to stay small, you know. Most people don't want, there was a little bit of a pressure back in like, before, you know, 2008, for box stores and things to go out on the prairie. And that was a horrible idea, I thought at the time, but,
Yeah. There has to
so
be
in some ways
efficient
the,
centers for living, yeah, there's some pretty big
for
stuff.
some reason, or for the economic downturn was good for us for preventing that.
Yeah,
honestly,
just halting,
honestly, yeah,
putting the brakes on.
yeah,
Yes.
landowners like like pulled off on their grandiose visions a little bit and gave us time to get where we are now, which I think is we're going in a pretty good direction right
And then,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what kind of is standing out to me, right? Is like, I figure like growth is gonna happen. So you wanna be able to steer the growth, right? And then I was also thinking, the other thing too is, we all wanna grow, but you also, yeah, totally wanna grow in the right way, right? Like, so sometimes a growth here now is not as beneficial in 20 years as a growth here a little bit later. Does that mean, you know what I'm thinking?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, so.
And what precedent are you setting by allowing this growth here?
Well, sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a certain level of population, I think it would be nice to get Tenino to where it could be more of a self-sustaining kind of economy inside of the city. I think a lot of that can be done through infill in this town, especially if it was a little denser within the city limits.
And even infill can be done in a very beautiful, welcoming, organic, natural way. You know what I'm saying? It's just, but it's all in how you do it, right? Yeah, we need an 8-plex, but do we just throw up a square block that's the cheapest per square foot? Oh, that's gonna be ugly, right? Or do we, so not, I mean.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time showing folks pictures of density that you would never know. Like, some of the most desirable neighborhoods in Olympia are really dense, but people don't want it now.
Well,
They've envisioned apartment complexes that are really blocky and monotonous.
Well, and I totally get the idea of, like, if you can build dense, right? If we're not just primarily a neighborhood community where people are traveling to Tumwater, or traveling to Fort Lewis, and then as soon as you get people out on the streets, right, the whole dynamic, social dynamic changes as well. Because now you have people smiling and talking, and it's like, holy cow, right? Like,
and then you got a few businesses, and then they build on each other.
Totally.
And you get more.
And then you got the guy on the street corner now that's got a little food truck, you know, or a little food cart, you know. It's just, things just start to satisfy. So that's neat.
But certainly, infill is a word like density. There's can often be this really negative reaction, like, what are you making us do?
Sure.
And I was interested, so the city of Lacey has been working on accessory dwelling units and being able to have those. And I just heard that like 150 people came to their workshop last Saturday because of their interest in what they're doing with ADUs. And for many people, it's like, okay, my aging parent, there's not room in my house for them, and they want some independence, or my college kid, or, you know, somebody I'm just gonna rent to make a little more income.
Yeah.
And so ADUs can be sort of a way that doesn't really change the community character. And we've probably always had, you know, I grew up in a house that my parents built a little apartment as part of the house to take care of my grandmother who lived with us. So that doesn't feel as weird as an 8-plex.
Right.
And there's some gorgeous 8-plexes.
Oh, totally. Or it's like, or you can have so-and-so who parks the RV in the back of the house, right? Or you can build a fixed structure that's landscaped and it matches the style of the house, and you're taking care of two things, and you get rid of the RV, right? I mean, there's a way, I like that.
So you guys have such an important role in this. I mean, you're the ones that are sort of the translator of the community vision into something.
Sure.
You know, communicating to your fellow residents, hey, this is why we're doing this, and it's coming not from an elected official, but from, you know, you're a member, you're an elected official at some level, but you're not like the mayor.
Yeah.
The mayor telling somebody something is very different.
Or unpaid appointed volunteers.
That's right, exactly.
Right.
It's like, okay, you're still one of us.
That's
That's kind of the way people
right.
feel.
Well, and so I was gonna bring this up a couple meetings ago, but I mean, that's so interesting, right? We've got on Facebook Tenino Talk, and we've got these different community groups, right? And so like, I'm on the commission, right? With you two, a couple more, we come here and we talk, and the disconnect between and I understand this is always gonna happen, right? Some people just like to be negative, but the disconnect between a large portion of our community and what they think we're doing shocks me when I read these comments, right? Like we're puppets for the mayor, and we're sending out jobs to the cronies. I mean, I'm like, these are the things that are being said, and I'm reading this, And I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm here every meeting, and I don't see a single crony. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not in here making magical deals, right? So at some point in time, there's either a disconnect between what we're actually doing and our citizens, where they don't know. And if we know that that's not the case, then they're just horrible individuals who we're probably never going to change, right? But I tend to wonder, I wonder what that is, right? But that's a big public relations thing. It caught me off guard as I was reading.
Yeah, how do you get folks to come in and actually see what's going on?
Well,
You're
it's
busy
open.
at night.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing.
Or how do we just get our citizens to see us as members of the community, right? Like, I mean, the only thing I thought of is there's a spot on the webpage for our pictures and a bio, right? Right now we're just little stick figures, so it's like someone clicks on the Planning Commission and they just see some names and numbers but no faces, right? It seems simple, but it's like, how do we bridge that gap and just say, no, we're citizens, like, you want to push the car too, like, hop in there, like, we're ready to go. Yeah.
And you know, maybe you have something at one of the festivals. We've come down and done some of your festivals when we've been working on, I think the last one for me was a project we were working on with the port, because they were doing a 2050 visioning, and so we came down during one of your parades and talked to people on the street. And maybe that's part of it. Hi, I'm a member of the Planning Commission. Do you recognize me from someplace?
Sashes. You know, mayor, planning commissioner, and we can walk around in the parade. Oh, I like it.
Exactly.
No, I get it though, right?
One of the people.
No, totally. And then they can look at you and go, oh, he's a planning commissioner, right? Like, he's not that different than me.
It's not that scary.
Right, right. He's wearing a Tenino hat. He's blending in, you know, fooling everyone. No, it's just, yeah. No, yeah, I mean, that's...
Yeah, and we're in such a divisive place right now, sort of in politics and in our country, and that negativity. I swear, the conspiracy theories that are out there about what's happening, it's just, and a lot of that is absence of information, so the wrong information sort of gets jammed in there. I don't know how, you know, it makes me feel like maybe ancient people felt when they looked up at the moon and said, I don't know how this works, so I'm going to make something up.
Sure.
And I think with Facebook, those theories get very quickly.
That's true.
Well, and that's what, yeah, I mean, Facebook is, I just think of Facebook as like a modern day soapbox, right? Like, you're just kind of standing up and just screaming something out to whoever will listen, and then they post something on your wall. You know what I'm saying? And it's like fuel is fueling fuel, right? And we all just have this group thought, and I can just call out my angers to the world, and everyone will hear me, you know? It's just like,
and sort of make up whatever I want to make up. Well, I heard.
Well, my best friend Jerry said, yeah, right. So, and he heard it because he saw it on Facebook, you know?
Yeah. Oh, you know, there was, I saw a Planning Commission person talking to the mayor in the store.
Yeah.
Therefore.
Right.
Public records disclosure. Yeah, right.
Just does everything the mayor says.
Right. So the secret meetings from the vegetable aisle. I knew it. I knew it. I've been looking for that. Oh, you know.
And the other thing is that most people don't have time to be volunteers or to come and do this. Thank you for doing this. This is so important to the community. And so absent, like I said, absent real knowledge about things, we might think the worst. And you guys are just so close to the community, and I hope you think of ways to engage them. Because people are smart, and I always think what we learned is that things are so complex right now. The problems we're facing are hard. And we need all the people's viewpoints we can possibly have, and some of them will work, some of them won't, but, you know, if we're dealing a lot with homelessness right now, if somebody has a magic idea, let's talk about it. And I guess the other thing for me is, it's not one idea, it's this and this and these two things, because of that complexity. And the other thing we faced in Sustainable Thurston was by doing this, we're kind of trading off, and maybe it makes something else not work so good for a little while. You know, if you invited every company in the world to come here, if you build all those warehouses, you'd have perhaps more jobs, but what would have happened to some other things that mattered to your community, so.
Kind of like trading in some, you know, the future for today kind of thing.
Right,
Exactly.
Like,
I go through days when
we'd have a lot more money to play with, we could fix all the roads like next week, you know, it'd be awesome. Let's just do it. But then it, you think about it, it just, it
Doesn't
takes you
work.
completely the wrong direction
Not long term,
that
yeah.
you've, you know, been trying to go the whole time.
Yeah, and we're working on, I don't know if you know this, but we have federal funds that flow through the Regional Planning Council are available. And this year, Thurston County has offered to, what word do I use that is not money laundering?
To sponsor a grant.
Sponsor a grant program. So basically, what they're able to do is make state money available to the smaller rural communities, and state money is much easier to spend than federal.
Or local money, actually.
Yeah, local money in essence, and so, federal money, we always say is easier to get than it is to spend, because there's lots of reporting and lots of requirements and the like, so there'll be a grant, application in the fall that we'll be doing that, Tenino can apply for funds that don't have all those federal pieces to them, and so.
For sidewalks
Yeah,
or.
okay,
that's what-
building
that's
what I was wondering.
Or something like that.
Sure.
About just transportation infrastructure, essentially.
Having
Yeah.
507 go through the town is a real burden.
Right, because what we can't do.
Because everything has to be approved by DOT.
Right.
But one of the main problems with the downtown that the downtown businesses always report is they want wider sidewalks, but the crown of the road has been built up over the years to the point where like the bottom of the wheels of like a logging truck are actually above the sidewalk when they're driving in the middle of the road. And so if you widen the sidewalks, basically there would be no lip
Right.
of the sidewalk, it would just go right into the street kind of.
Which would be very ADA and good long-term for the baby boomers that are
That
coming.
may
right?
not work.
But when grandpa's 86 and he's trying to park downtown,
Not
it
good,
might not be
not
awesome.
good. He's gonna be on the sidewalk. Okay, yeah, no, let's not do that.
I know, gosh, maybe 10 years ago, you guys did get some federal money to do sidewalks, and the mayor at the time said he would never touch it again, because they had to keep doing them because of ADA. I mean, it was just, they couldn't get them lined up, but, so that's why getting the local money instead is really good, because it's just slightly less rigorous.
And you still have to meet requirements.
Yeah,
I mean,
Sure.
everyone supports the idea. The problem is that the rules about how you enforce that change. And some of it has to do with whether people in wheelchairs have a louder voice than people who use walkers. And it really depends on how they interpret the rules. So the things that work for a wheelchair don't necessarily work for a walker when it comes to bumps on a curb or some of those things, and so.
No, that's true.
And then we have our aspect of being an 1892 to 1915 boom town, right? Like, there's a lot of things that just are hard to work with when it comes to that.
Yes.
Hence,
This
the great
metal
big mega
monstrosity.
ramp on the side of the building there.
Yeah, you can't pay your grant funds in wooden money.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because they still have the machine to print it.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's
Where tonight I'll get all this money.
We're all moving to Tenino when things get really tough, because
Yeah.
you can print money.
That's right. Turn on the machines.
Hilarious.
As the mob's chasing us, I don't know.
No, maybe I'm not suggesting that, don't quote me. So anyway, this is sort of Sustainable Thurston, as I said, you have copies of the plan, there's a lot of information online. We're happy to talk about stuff, because as you can tell, we love to talk about this stuff,
Sure.
so, and we love that you're interested in hearing about it and really dedicated to helping Tenino, so let us know what we can do.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into some of this. I didn't know that much about Sustainable Thurston, to be honest with you.
And then you're welcome to take any of these flyers, I think you sent up there. And if you want 900 more of them, we can do that. So if you wanna put any of this stuff out in businesses or places that you go,
Okay.
more than happy to provide more copies of them. On the rural transit, we also have the transit guides, and we're happy to produce those, which has the schedule in it and the routes.
That's awesome that it's free now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had heard Olympia buses were free, but I didn't realize rural transit.
We
buses
just
were
did
free.
this, we heard what intercity transit was doing, and we've been wanting to do it, but because it's federal grant funds, we had to get a bunch of permissions, so we couldn't do it at exactly the same time that
Oh, I see.
intercity transit did.
And their
But
ridership is up 20% already this month.
Really?
Yeah,
for intercity transit.
I didn't realize they went to free.
they did in
Yeah.
January.
Okay.
Yeah, and they had 25,000 more trips than
That's
they
amazing.
had
So we might be able to
last year.
expand the service because of user, or number of users and stuff.
Days, right?
That would be awesome.
Coaches and then-
Yeah.
Now, just a question on how things work. Rural transit, does that have regular routes or is
Yes,
that a
it does.
dial? Oh, it does.
has regular
Okay,
routes. When
yeah.
we first started it, it was caller range
Okay.
routes. Now there are regular routes. Now, that said, it's a variable fixed route, so if you had a disability and you lived a mile from the stop, then we would come pick you up.
Oh, cool.
So
that's
dial
nice.
lift is a part of rural transit.
Very
That's
cool.
one of the requirements, so.
It's not quite as regular as, like, if you had a job in Tumwater and you had to be there every day at a certain time, it would be pretty challenging.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But if you just need to get to Tumwater.
Sure.
Yeah, so we basically try and work those commute routes, and we're open to hearing from the community if you want things to change. We've made changes over the years, and in fact, last year we did a more direct route so we can get there more quickly. And in fact, when we first put the service in place and we were getting funding for it, it was like, okay, within Thurston County, and then we heard from people here, Olympia is not the center of the universe for us, Centralia is, so can you get us to Centralia? And so we
That's
have
very true.
connections in
Yes.
Centralia at a variety of places. And for veterans that want to go to the service center in Centralia, they don't even have to transfer. Because
Just go
we
straight
know
there.
that some of them, have some issues
Totally.
with being on a vehicle. So if you're a veteran and you want to go there, we can take you there directly rather than dropping you off at the train station and having to transfer. So
That's
we're
awesome.
trying to serve people. It's the same thing intercity transit does. And by the way, we just made this free, but over the last 20 years, if you got on the bus and you didn't have the fare, we would still take you. Or if you had 23 cents instead of $1, we would still take
That's
you.
nice. That's nice.
Because, that's what it's about, is getting people where they need to
Sure.
go. So, okay, we don't wanna keep you
Well,
any longer.
Yeah,
but-
we don't wanna keep you guys either. Sounds like it's been a long day.
No, yeah, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sure, and again, I have a business card, I'll leave it with you. Certainly John knows how to get a hold of me, and the mayor, but, let me leave a card, so if you think of anything else,
Yeah, we may have some more questions for you.
yeah. And you can tell people you meet that we're not so scary.
Right. Well, we have to, they have to think that we're not scary first. And then we can relay that message.
Are you guys in the building
you.
with Big Brothers Big Sisters?
We are.
Pardon?
We're with the,
Yeah, we're one floor under them.
Yes, yeah. And we work with them a lot, so in addition to providing this service at RT, I love RT, so you just have to listen to me for a minute. We also provide after-school transportation for after-school programs for kids, so we get them home. So we contract with the school district to do that work. So in addition to this fixed route, we provide services to kids that are going to Roathat in Rochester and are coming to Boys and Girls Club facilities.
Okay.
Now, it's general purpose, anyone could ride those buses, because that's the rules.
Sure.
But, so, we're really trying to, I think that's our goal, is how do we serve people?
Sure.
And if you can do it, we'll figure out a way. And Tenino has been a big supporter of it. You guys always provide in-kind support. Okay, we're going home.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Good work.
Yeah.
Thank
See ya.
you.
All right.
Have a good night.
You too, drive safe, or drive your bus safe, or whatever, however you're getting home.
You
Be
too.
safe.
We'll be hoofing it. Yes. Meeting
Thanks a
adjourned.
lot.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was great to see you
Do
again.
you live nearby too?
Me? Yeah, I just live over by Parkside Elementary.
Okay.
Are you walk?
I usually do, I drove today. I live by the Coast Conference.
See
Oh, you do?
guys later.
Bye.
Yep, thanks, Rona.
Bye-bye.
You
Can
need
you
any help?
sign getting this back? No, I got it.
Do we have to do this? Do we have to do the tables and stuff?
No, that's not good tomorrow. Is this Karen's?
Oh,
Oh, it looks like it.
yes it is.
Karen?
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, don't do anything. If you want help, let me know.
Oh, no, it's good. Thanks.
Good night, Mom.
Good night.